Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the last Applanga webinar of the year. I'm super excited to kick this one off today because this is going to highlight all of our more recent features and changes, and we'll show you what's new in 2022. My name is Aisha Amin, and I'm one of the customer success managers at Applanga. My job is to help customers use a platform effectively and as efficiently as possible. I help users learn the ins and outs of Applanga, and I can help assist with any issues that come up while localizing your projects. If you ever have any questions, run into any problems, anything at all, really, I'm here to help. And joining me today behind the scenes is Christian Stanka, CEO and co-founder of Applanga. He's going to be the man behind the curtains today to help us with, hopefully, a pretty smoothly run webinar. Any questions that come up as we progress throughout the content for today, Christian will be able to help there.
Yes, thanks for the introduction, and that's exactly what I'm planning to do. There's a chat, and somebody just said he did not enter the password. Thanks for the feedback. I will basically also be the chat moderator. So for any questions that come up during the point, like just type them in, and we either do them at the end where we have a Q&A session, or we pick them up as we go, depending on the issue at hand. So please feel free to type anything in there, and we will for sure pick it up, and I will moderate it a bit if need be. But back to you, Aisha. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. All right, so let's go over the agenda for today's webinar. First, we're going to start with in-place editing. This is how content is now presented on the Applanga project dashboard. We reorganized a little bit, so I'll show you where everything moved to and how to use each option. Next, or second, we're going to go over the multi-language view. This is a brand new feature. It's really helpful for users working across multiple languages because it allows you to view, edit, search, filter, sort across multiple languages or all languages at once. I'll show you how to enable the view and how you can actually use it. Next, we'll cover the changes to the workflow status options. We haven't actually changed the statuses themselves, but more so how you can use them. We've made it easier to update statuses, and I'll show you all the ways it can be done. Our fourth agenda item for today is a new screenshot editor. This is a powerful new feature. It helps you provide that important translation context to linguists. We've made it easier to manually upload screenshots to your Applanga projects with this new editor. And finally, we're also going to quickly go over some of the updates and new features that you can expect from Applanga in 2023. All right. So there is a lot of content to cover today. So as we move through everything through the webinar, please do add your questions to the chat as Christian requested. He's going to collect them as we go along, and I've reserved about the last 15 minutes or so for any questions. If you miss anything because of an urgent email or call, maybe you're working from home and you have kids or pets in the background, no worries. We're recording this webinar, and then after the call, we're going to send out a link to the recording as well as links to helpful and relevant documentation. All right. So with the agenda out of the way, we're going to jump right into in-place editing. Let me get my project pulled up. Bum, bum, bum. Let's try one of the languages. Here we go. As I mentioned earlier, we redesigned the editor to help users update translations quickly and easily. Saving as draft or publishing targets is clearly labeled, character counts are conveniently displayed, and checking the changelog for a given entry is much easier. Even better, publishing translations from the editor now clears the draft field to help keep your workflows a little bit more organized. Right. So let's go through what this looks like, right? I've got my editor open, and you can see the source text as well as our translated text. We've got our draft and we've got our target. I can click directly on the text. Let me find a good example. Yeah, let's use this one. I can click directly on the text, and we can actually go through how this works now. So there's a couple of things you might notice here. To the far right, we have the character count to help keep linguists more organized, right? You can have a better idea of text expansion. Next, we have the eye icon, and this is just for hidden characters. So by default, hidden characters are obviously hidden, right? But this is a great way to check for them. So if I were to show my hidden characters, I see we've got a new line, we've got a bunch of extra spaces. This draft and target looks similar, but if I were to click in here and use this, I see we have significantly fewer spaces here. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking for hidden characters and things like that. We do have a machine translation option as well. Let me go to one that isn't translated yet. Here we go. We do have a machine translation option. So I will warn you, this is not currently linked to Transperfect Translations, machine translations. That was a mouthful. Transperfect Translations MT. This one actually functions more like Google Translate. So right now you can only use this option on a string by string basis. So let's try this out. Give it a second to think. And now we've got our machine translation. Again, this is more so like Google Translate. It's not any sort of AI or anything like that that's connected to Transperfect. That being said, the development team does have plans to expand or extend the machine translation options on Applanga. You can expect some changes to that probably end of Q1 2023. However, once it is available, you'll get an email or an announcement from us, so you'll know when it's ready and how you can use it. Okay. Next, we have the close option. So this one will just close, where we have this text box for editing, without saving any of the changes. Then we have the option to publish or save as a target translation. And we also have the option to save as a draft translation. Let me save this one as a draft so you can see what it looks like. And there we go. Now we have this machine translation as a new draft translation. All right, let's see, what else do I have on my checklist? Oh, okay, so moving over to the left, we have our changelog here per string. So I'll go ahead and click this little history icon so we can see the changelog. All right, so looking through our changelog, you can see all the changes that I've made. As you can tell, I've been a very busy bee in this project. Green indicates where text was added, and red indicates where text was removed. So if I were to expand, I can see how the text was changed. We can see what it was originally and what it changed to. I cleared the translation earlier, so you see that it was removed. You also have this copy to clipboard option, which I think is also helpful when you're trying to compare how texts have changed. A little pro tip here, there is a filter at the top of the changelog. This is really great so you can find specific changelog entries. There's all kinds of helpful options in here. It defaults to all translation changes as we've seen, but there's all kinds of stuff in here. You can see when something was created or deleted. You can see when an entry is linked or tagged. Further down, you can see, where did it go? Order delivery and see what order something came from. There's all kinds of great stuff in here. The one that I probably use the most is the all types. So if you ever see anything fishy or you're investigating something fishy, maybe you have a translation that doesn't quite make sense. You can select this all types and filter for that, and you can see every little single thing that's happened to that string or translation on Applanga. You see all the changes to the translations I've made. You see all the changes to the status. You can see it all with this option. You can also filter by user, which I think is really helpful, mostly as like a sanity check. So you can see any specific changes made by a linguist, for example. So let's just search for me. And there you go. You see all the changes that I've made. Like I said earlier, I've been a pretty busy bee in this project. All right. So after the changelog, we have the I, the information icon, and this will actually pull up the old details view. In the detail view, you can see the string ID. You can see if someone has set the max character length. You can lock an entry. You can see who changed the entry last. Right. Close this. Let's see. Before we move on to the next item on the agenda, I'd like to make one small honorable mention here, and that's the changes to the top of the editor, right? We move the search, filter, and sort, as well as the import and export. We've kind of reorganized so things aren't as crowded when you're working in smaller windows. Maybe you have a really small laptop screen. Now it's not as crowded. You can easily find anything and everything you need to at the top of the editor. All right. So that excuse me, I can't talk today. And that covers some of the basics of in-place editing, which leads me to the next topic on the agenda for today, which is the multi-language view. So the multi-language view is great for users working across multiple languages. Like I mentioned earlier, you can view, edit, search, and filter across multiple or all languages in a project all at one time. It's super easy to enable from the page's breadcrumbs up top. It's this little toggle right here. We've got the 2 lines for bilingual, and we've got the multiple lines for multilingual or multi-language. All right, so what I'll do first is I'll switch our little toggle. And now it's going to ask me which languages I want to be able to view. So I could select all, right? But in this case, I'm just going to grab like French and Spanish. I'll click apply. And now we actually see our source up top, our French, and our Spanish. So you get to see everything all at once. You can also see both the draft and target per language, so you really do see everything you need in the multi-language view. Even though I didn't select source, you do still see English, but English, but it's not editable. So that's something to keep in mind. If I did want to also be able to edit English, I do have that option. Whoops. Up here, I could select English as well. Right, let's get back into Spanish again. Alrighty, like I mentioned earlier, it still kind of works like the in-place editing. You kind of just click into the text box to edit. Let's see if we have one without a translation yet. And same here. Right. Let's see, what else do we need to show you? Let me find a long string to show you something else that's pretty cool. Dum, dum, dum. So with really long strings, sometimes it's hard to compare across languages, or excuse me, between your English and your target or your source and your target. This one's got a couple paragraphs, but as I scroll in my source, or excuse me, in my target, it also scrolls across my source. This is also available in the bilingual view. I just forgot to mention it. And I can do it again here in Spanish. So hopefully this is something that's pretty helpful to linguists, especially when you're working across really large strings, maybe something like terms and conditions, privacy notices, things like that. Right. Let's see. Another feature of the multi-language view is the ability to apply the multi-edit actions across multiple languages using the More dropdown. So let me select a couple here. And now let me use my More option. I can publish these draft translations across all languages or just the languages included in my current multi-language view. But if I had enabled all languages for the multi-language view, I could publish all draft translations all at once. It's much easier than having to go in language by language. You can also approve outdated translations, add to memory. There's a lot of options that you can use with this multi-language view. right? You can also see to the right, you get all of your warnings and your status per language. So everything's still visible in this multi-language view. I can also use a search to search across all my languages. So I know I have Google in here. And now I see my translations that have Google, both French and Spanish. Same with Facebook, I believe. Again, you see all the translations with that term in it. Right. The same logic applies for updating translation statuses or workflow statuses, which is a nice segue into our next topic on the agenda for today. And that's going to be the updates to the workflow statuses. So there's a couple of big changes to the workflow status. The status options themselves remain the same, but I'm not sure if you remember, before this would pull up kind of like a pop-up, right? But now you can just open up this menu or drop-down menu and grab the status that you need from here. Let's say these all need needs review. Up top are our usual options, right? The needs translation, accepted, rejected, and earlier we saw needs review, but it's applied, so we can't apply it again. But if you scroll down, you also see your custom statuses. We've got testing and priority. These are custom statuses created at the team level, so I can also apply those statuses from here as well. They're a little bit easier to get to. You can still pull up the status pop-up. I'll click advanced here. And again, we have the status pop-up. Let's take it back to needs review. You can leave a comment here. And you can click advance to include all languages, or maybe you only want to apply it to Spanish. There's quite a few options that you have with this new workflow status to make it a little bit easier to update these statuses. This is really great for when you have lots of review rounds or you have a lot of strings to review. It's pretty easy to update them. Another big thing, instead of using the check marks to the side to update the status, you also can update the status from the status indicator. So this current status is priority, but I could change it to needs review. I could scroll down and grab testing. It works the same way as the drop down we saw in the top menu. Again, you could click advanced here and open up the pop-up again. All right. Let's see. Oh, another cool thing is if a translation is in an order. Let me find one in an order. Here we go. Obviously, you can't update a status for a translation that's in an order. It needs to remain in the in order status. So now you get a warning and you can actually go to the order from here. This is another great run if you have multiple orders associated with a project or multiple open orders associated with a project. It's easy to find which order a string is included in. Right. Close this and move back to my editor. Let's see, what's next on my checklist for today? Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is how to disable the multi-language view. You can just switch the little toggle back, and we're back in English and French, which was originally what I had my editor open in. Right. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the screenshot editor. So this, again, is a completely new feature. It's going to help Applanga users provide context to linguists with more accurate screenshots. The screenshot editor is great to manually upload new screenshots. You can edit existing screenshots. You also have the option to upload new variants of existing screenshots, add or remove strings tagged to each screen, set the string position, or use auto assign function that will try to automatically match strings to screens. So with the screenshot editor today, I'm going to cover three flows. We're going to upload a new screenshot, we're going to upload a new variant to a specific screen, and last, we'll edit a specific screen. I'll show you how you can edit a screen. Maybe something was accidentally tagged to the wrong screen. I'll show you how to add or remove the strings tagged to the screen. So starting with uploading a new screen, let me open up the screens menu. And now I'll click Add Screen. I can browse files, or I can drag and drop. I think I have it open over here. Perfect. All right. So now that I'm sure that I have the correct screen, the first thing we'll do is we'll give the screen's tag a name. In my experience, the more descriptive, the better. It just helps keep things organized. So I'm going to say, you see I've been at this before, we'll say discovery page. We also need to confirm the language the screenshot is in. It's going to default to your source, but you can select different ones from here as well. Right. Once we get through that, we get to the assigned string section. You can just search for the string ID here, or you can search for the actual text. So let's try discover. There it is down here. However, if I were to do that, we won't have the string position in there. So let me show you how I would do that instead. Let's hover over the actual screenshot. I'm going to click and drag to define the text area or the string position. And then again, I can search for the ID or the specific text. I'll scroll down, select discover, and now we see it in the assigned strings list. Let me show you how auto assign would do this. So I'm going to click auto assign strings. And before we get started, I'll preface by saying that any string auto-assigned to a screen is marked with a question mark. When you start auto-assigning, any string that currently has a check mark will be removed. So you'll see what I mean by this once we actually finish with this first round of auto-assign. Let's see, we need to confirm our screenshot language. We'll confirm that we're aware of the effects, and we'll continue with auto-assign. Right. Now this can take a second for auto-assign to find the strings. It is essentially just OCR. If you have a bunch of text with different colors, maybe you have tiny text, or you have a lot of text on the screen, it might take a second. Right, so now it's found four strings. It does give you a little warning. Warning's not a good word. It does give you a helpful little hint to review all the strings marked with a question mark by auto-assign. This is kind of what we saw earlier when it was giving us that warning. So I'm going to close the hint, and now I'm going to confirm if it's the correct one. Discover is right. Pilates is right. We see our 5 low-carb dinner recipes. Now this one isn't quite it, right? It just grabbed F. So I'm gonna uncheck this one, and then I'll just define it myself. So again, I'll grab the text area or the string position, look up the text. I think it is, there we go, case sensitive. All right, we'll grab fit recipes, and bam, now we have our string positions on the screen, and if I hover over, you can actually see them here as well. You also have a couple options. You could remove the assigned string, you could reassign the string, and you could show the string in the assigned string list. So if you had like a lot of strings assigned, and it goes like, all the way to the bottom, this will show you exactly where it is in the assigned string list. All right. So before we move on to actually uploading or saving the screen, let's take a quick peek at the screenshot details. Here we could list the version of the app, the device the screenshot was taken on, the operating system, and we could also assign a tag category. Let's say this was for iOS. I'll say iPhone. And now we can actually upload the screen. If I want to upload another screen immediately after, I could check this checkbox. So then it just becomes like a nice kind of workflow, and you just kind of keep chugging along. But I'm gonna go ahead and click upload. Give it a second to think. And now we see the discovery page. Since I assigned the tag category, you actually see that the screen kind of count is in a different color to reflect that tag category. Okay. So that wraps up uploading a brand new screen, but let's go ahead and let's upload a variant to, or upload a follow-up variant to an existing screen. So let's just do the same one for now. I'll open it to the side. We see our screen here. I'm going to fit vertically so we can see how it looks. And now we have our options to the side. Let's click Upload Variant. Now this is great if you're uploading translated screenshots, or maybe the designers or developers have made changes to the UI. This would be a great way for you to upload a new variant. So this time we see the variant details first and not the assigned strings first. So let's say this is version 2.0. Maybe this is, it's still iPhone. Operating system, we'll say is iOS. And then we can move on from there. Hopefully the screen looks a little more familiar now that you've seen kind of what this editor looks like when we originally uploaded a screen. So let's upload our variant. All right, I believe I still need to refresh, so we'll do that real quick. All right, so I will say that the variant that we just uploaded did not overwrite the original. I can actually still get to it from this variant side menu option. It lets us know that we have two variants available, and if I want to see the previous version, I can just use these little drop-down carrots to go back and see the previous version. I'm sure you can see here, you also have the option to upload a variant or edit a variant from here, right? So that was our second flow, which is uploading a variant. So that brings us to our third flow, which is where we're going to edit an existing screen on Applanga. So let's try out a different screen. I'm sure you guys are tired of the discovery page, and I'm going to click this little pencil icon. Here you have the option, you could rename the tag. Maybe you don't need this page one. Maybe just we want login. You could also change which strings are currently connected to the screen. Maybe something is incorrect and you want to remove it, or maybe it's an obsolete string that's no longer on the screen. We can remove a couple. We'll click Save. And now if I pull up Health App Login, we see again that the page was, or the screen was renamed. We see the strings associated with it. And that is how you would edit an existing screen, right? So that is the new screenshot editor. With our live tour of the editor complete, I'll switch back to the PowerPoint so I can quickly highlight some new features on Applanga's Horizons. Here we go. Okay. So before I get too far into the new updates and features you can expect from Applanga, I'll forewarn you that all of these are coming in 2023. So don't get too excited based on what you see today. First, let's cover the upcoming editor updates. We have a new custom filter creation and filtering UI. This will make it easier for users to create and save custom filters. No more checkboxes and vague wording as you currently see in the UI. The UI will more accurately explain what you're filtering for, and you'll be able to easily create and save and based rules. So that will be the new custom filter UI. That brings me to the workflow status rules. So as we went over during the live walkthrough of the changes to the editor earlier, I covered all the existing changes to the workflow status. That being said, you can expect some more changes early next year in the form of creating and setting workflow status rules. This will be great feature for those of you with extensive review workflows on Applanga. There's two big things you'll be able to accomplish with the new status rules. So the first is you'll be able to require a comment for certain statuses. For example, you could set a rule so that reviewers are required to leave a comment when they apply the rejected status to a specific translation. Second, and what you see here, you'll also be able to set rules based on changes to translations, meaning if there was an update made to the draft or target value, a specific workflow status is set automatically. So for an example here, you could create a rule where a new draft translation will automatically get a status of needs review, or really whatever status you need. Right. So those are the upcoming project editor updates. And like I said, this is coming in 2023, right? So next, let's talk about a huge project update. We've been hinting and we've been teasing at it for a very long time, but branching and versioning is almost ready. You can expect this to be rolled out next year. Instead of draft and target, you'll have the option to create branches in Applanga projects. You can think of these as a copy of a project within a project, where you can or where branches can be managed separately, or you can merge them, right, whenever you're ready. So hopefully this will help keep developers and linguists much more organized while localizing content in these continuous development environments. I know this is a big one, and you'll definitely hear from us at support and Uplanga once it's actually ready. This is a huge feature. It's going to entail quite a few changes, so we want to be sure it's perfect before we release it. All right. Next, we have some integration updates. The Applanga development team is currently redesigning the GitHub onboarding steps. So the new onboarding flow is much more intuitive, it's responsive, it's easy to follow. It makes it really easy to integrate your Applanga project with GitHub. Once the team is done with the GitHub onboarding steps, other repos will follow. So next, the development team is also developing a new API to access what is now dashboard-specific features. Some of the big ones are creating new teams and projects, managing teams, adding or removing languages. There's a lot more that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. But this option will really give developers much more control and flexibility when it comes to using Applanga. Right. Okay. And our last update, but certainly not least, the Applanga website is getting a much needed overhaul, or as I've been calling it, a facelift. We'll have a new website that's much better organized with more information than our current one. And as a part of that, the website support chat is going to be improved. It will also include a ticketing system. So now when you need help with a specific project, maybe you're having issues setting up an Applanga SDK integration and you need some help from the development team. Maybe you found a small bug. You'll have a ticket that you can easily reference for updates and keep in communication with the Applanga support person who's managing that ticket. And again, as I mentioned earlier, all of this stuff is coming in 2023. All right. So that's all I have for future updates and new features. I know we covered a lot of stuff in the webinar today, so I'll go ahead and I'll open the floor for questions. I think I saw a couple come in through the chat, so I will let Christian get to moderating.
Thank you very much, Aisha. I actually went ahead and answered directly in the chat already, so I kind of went through that. But if you have anything else left, please let us know. As I just said, this will also have a recording, so if there was a lot of stuff and you want to go back on anything and make sure you got that right, or have any questions then in the follow-up, please reach out to us via the support chat or support at Applanga, or just reply to the invite to this webinar. We will get back to you. We are kind of like a bit early now since I already replied to all the questions. We planned for like closing 15 minutes early, so now we have around 20 minutes. We will leave it open for you to take a moment, and if you still have questions, please feel free to ask them. Otherwise, we will give you that time back. We will be just waiting for you. Right. The Q1 is correct for the branching and versioning feature, right? So Q1 is like we have a first release at the 15th of January. Like maybe we can already do a partial rollout by then. And we will let you know, which will be just in time, I guess, for anybody coming back from vacation to kind of get started with it. It will definitely be a phased rollout so that we will unlock it individually per client, one by one, so to speak. And it will also entail migration of existing projects. As Aisha said, right now you have a draft and a target. You have this two-pronged kind of setup in your product by default, or the only one that we currently support. But then with branching and versioning, instead of a draft, you will have like a test branch, staging branch, and maybe release branch. So you have 3 versions in different potentially, yes. 15 is what we looking forward to for the first release. Yes, please don't name me on it. That's what we try to have the first version released by then. I hope it's then stable enough to also give you access already to it. I know you've been waiting for it, but we will definitely reach out and follow up as soon as we can actually let people in. The GitHub integration is already ready. Like what we have right now is, or what we're working on right now is an improvement to the how you set it up as a developer. It's a bit cumbersome between our API key and the GitHub API secrets and everything that you have to configure back and forth. And the new onboarding is just like an kind of like an interface on our side in our onboarding dialog where you just click a couple of buttons and fill all the information on our side so that we do all the back and forth and stuff on our end. So you can already try that. We can provide documentation to the GitHub integration that we have already. Please reach out to us. But of course. Cool. I already see people trickling out, so thanks everyone for joining. It depends, right? It depends. Like there's a free version, there's options to use it. We would have to talk about the overall setup, right? It's a tech feed from that perspective.
So
I will stop the recording now just in case that it doesn't get too long and we just have to watch 15 minutes of people leaving. Just like, yeah.